Jamie, are you ready? Sorry, Holly, are you ready?
I am, Nancy.
Okay, sorry about that. Hello, everyone. I think we will get started. Again, this is Nancy Pinkerton with Associates, and I'm one of the account managers for the Western region. And today our webinar is on PaperSave. Holly Condon, who happens to be the VP at PaperSave for sales and marketing, is the presenter. And I won't go into much detail because I know Holly can tell you the best background on PaperSave, but I personally worked with them for the last 9 years, and I always love to tell you that the president of the company did the first demo I saw in like 2006. So I think they're a great partner to work with, and with that I will let Holly Condon take over and give you the 411 on PaperSave. Thanks, Holly.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Nancy. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time out of your day to take a look at our document management solution. Just a brief agenda, couple of housekeeping items. Everybody is on mute, just helps eliminate some of the noises that are probably occurring in your offices. But if you have any questions, we definitely encourage you to ask those of us. You'll notice off the right side of your screen there's a GoToWebinar toolbar. And inside that toolbar, there is a question-answer section. So if you go ahead and put any of those questions in there, we will stop several times throughout today's presentation to address those questions or actually weave in the information into the presentation. Just want to make sure I'm using your time efficiently and effectively. Now, to minimize that toolbar, there is a little sidebar on that window, and all the way at the top of the sidebar, there's an orange rectangle with a white arrow. You can click on that to minimize and, of course, click on that again to maximize it. So to start with, we're going to go through a few slides talking about the top considerations to kick your paper habit. And then we are going to dive into the PaperSave solution. And we are going to look at it from 3 different components. One is the core solution. That's document management. So think about taking away all of those filing cabinets and having all of those documents related to the Dynamics record that it's supporting. And then we're going to take a look at the workflow so you can monitor approval processes and transaction automation to help eliminate those keystrokes. And then at the end, we're going to do a quick wrap-up and finish off with any additional questions that come up. So reason number 1 to kick that paper habit is to really help drive efficiency across your operations. We do so by eliminating the 20 to 30% of your time that's typically spent filing, searching, retrieving information, because that information is not related to the Dynamics records. Typically in filing cabinets, although today a lot more organizations have information out there on their network drive as well. But we're going to connect the two so that you have one-click access to information. We're also going to help reduce the 1 out of 10 documents that's either lost or misfiled. So if you're preparing for an audit, you have access to information. You're not really pulling it like you do a piece of paper. So, you know, every time you pull that document out of the filing cabinet, the odds increase exponentially each time that the document can become lost or misfiled. Information's just a click away. Now, we also have other ways to get back to information, and that's through query tools. So whether you're looking for a single document or a group of documents, you can always get back to that information, which can help if you need to pull documents for a customer, so you can help improve customer service, or you need to pull a group of documents for an audit. The PaperSave can help pull that information to reduce the 40% of the time typically spent during an audit preparation, because that information can be pulled based on financial transaction information. Now, you do have several cost considerations when you're talking about managing that paper, such as it costs about $20 just to file a document, $220 to replace a lost or misfiled document. And when you think about those 4-drawer lateral file cabinets that we fill year in and year out, it costs about $25,000 just to fill one of those cabinets up. So some tremendous cost associated with managing that paper that we can help eliminate. Reason number 2 to kick that paper habit is to really help streamline and automate paper-based processes. So we can help automate that matching process. Whether you're using purchase orders or not, there's typically a matching process that takes place at least between that check and the supporting documents that were paid by that check. Well, PaperSave automates that based on the relationships that exist within the Dynamics applications. We can also automate and streamline workflow processes. So we can capture documents upon the receipt of them and then have them flow through the appropriate approvers to accounts payable. So nothing gets lost. You don't have to worry about vendors calling you and you kind of looking around wondering where that document is and if it's lost and can you send me another copy? Okay, well, I'll get that into the approval process. Because once documents go in, you have the insight as to where they are at all points in time. You can also help automate that filing process. So one of our capture methods is called Scan First. And Scan First will actually associate the document with the Dynamics record as you're doing the entry into Dynamics. So it's automating that filing. PaperSave is going to automate that matching. So we're saving all of that time on the back end of your process. Now, for those of y'all who have higher volume or are growing and are looking at, do I hire another person, do I not? We really want to make the people that we have more efficient. Transaction automation will electronically or dynamically read the document, lift information off, such as vendor, date, dollar amount, invoice number. If you think about kind of that core information that you use to create the transaction, and then it's going to flow right into the Dynamics solution. Okay, reason number 3, and there are more reasons, but we'll end at number 3. It really helps you kind of connect and collaborate. We can connect people to processes, whether they're in a remote office or not. We also can help with the capturing of documents, especially in a distributed environment. So we can help reduce the cost associated with the transportation of documents and that delay. So if you have remote offices that are currently overnighting the documents to you or having to scan them and send them to you and then you print them out, there's time and cost associated with that. So with PaperSave, we can capture them into the system from those remote locations and then they're immediately part of that process. And then, of course, you have the workflow process that allows you to manage where the approvals are across mobile devices, tablets. You can allow people to interact with the process so that documents are getting through it in a timely fashion. So in the nutshell, PaperSave is really one application that starts and it can grow with you. So probably much like you started with the Dynamics solution, you started maybe with a core and over time you've added some additional modules or solutions into the fold. And PaperSave is really no different. It is the core document management system. So it's really designed to drive efficiency within your operations because it's effectively managing the way that you manage content or information that you make business decisions on. We also can manage that process. As you want to expand out to that larger group of users, we have a full workflow engine that is built into PaperSave that you can use for any type of document. Although today we'll pick primarily on the accounts payable area. And then you also have transaction automation for the most efficient way of doing things because we're eliminating those keystrokes. So let's get on to the product demonstration next. So within the demonstration, we're going to start with how do we get documents into the system? Because that's essential. We want to make sure it's easy, it's simple, it's flexible, so that users adopt new technology. And we have 3 primary capture methods. We have scan now, scan later, scan first. So whether we want to open up a record or create a record, scan right to it. Use barcode technology to kind of scan the document later and then have the system auto-associate, or capture that document first. And with Scan First, that's also where we find the workflow and the automation. We also have the Microsoft Office integration. So we integrate with Microsoft Outlook as well as the Office products. So if you're working with in Outlook, you can save a document into the workflow or save it and associate it with an existing Dynamics record. And the same thing you can do within Word, Excel, PowerPoint. We also have 3 other capture methods. So, and these are based on different preferences. You can drag and drop into PaperSafe. You could browse out and attach a document, or you could also right mouse click on a document to save it into the system. And then last but not least, we have a process that is geared towards documents that you are producing from Dynamics. So if you do a check run, or if you have picking lists or delivery tickets, and you want those to be saved with a payment or a sales order, and those are documents that you're producing from GP, or Dynamics, I should say, because we do integrate with multiple versions of Dynamics. What PaperSafe does is we will recapture those documents automatically and associate them with a respective record. And we place a barcode right on those documents during the printing process. So let's take a look at some of these capture methods, and then we will come back and take a look at retrieval. Okay, so PaperSafe does integrate and is certified for Microsoft Dynamics, SL, CRM, GP, as well as AX. Since the system is seamlessly integrated, we're going to feature the GP user interface today, but there are pretty much some minor differences across the other integrations that I will also try to point out. So to get a document into the system, right, how do we kind of navigate through our host ERP application? Well, we are just going to come and open up a record or create a record, and then just by clicking Save, you'll notice it prompts me, do I want to add a document? And I can say yes or no. I can also have the system remember my answer in case I don't want this popping up in the future. Now, here you'll notice we have captured record information. So if we were looking at a customer record or a cash receipt or a payment or a sales order or a purchase order, this information is going to be reflective of that record. And we're going to pull it and store it automatically within PaperSafe. Now, over on the right side of the screen, we can see different document types. Now, these document types are user-defined. So here for a vendor, we are giving a user some structured data in which to select from. So if I'm adding a W-9 form or a contract or whatever the case might be, I can, categorize it. And then maybe I want unstructured because I want a user to be able to add notes or comments that they might want to search on later. Now, on my toolbar, you can see I've got 3 different options, and then there's a 4th option that's hidden. Well, Scan Now is going to call up that desktop scanner, and it's going to pull that document through, and it's going to show it to you on the screen. Scan Later is going to pull up a printer window, and it's going to allow you to print that cover sheet. So for today's purposes, I'm just going to print it right here and pull it up on my screen, and then we can see that cover sheet. So this barcode is what PaperSafe is going to use to capture that document and associate it back to Beaumont Construction later, okay, just as the name kind of implies. And once you scan it, typically in a stack, PaperSafe is going to do 2 important things with this cover sheet. One is it's going to use it to separate one document from another document. And then 2, it's going to read the barcode to know exactly what record you want it associated to. So here on the cover sheet, you can see the company name. So if you have multiple companies, you know which one it's going to be, which one it's going to go to. You can see the type of record. And then down here, you can see the record in particular, right, Beaumont Construction. And then you can see down here at the very bottom the document type because we're adding in a contract. So Scan Later is great for a more casual user who has a document here, a document there, and you want them to be able to, easily capture information into the system. Now you also have another way of getting documents into the system around scanning, and that is with the Scan First process. Okay, so this is what we typically find people will use as far as volume. So if I have a stack of documents, let's say that have just come in, I've got 10 different invoices that have just been dropped on my desk, and I need to process them. Well, I'm kind of assuming in this scenario that those invoices are approved already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan them to a shared network folder. And that network folder, something that PaperSafe is monitoring, just like that folder where you scanned the scan later documents. PaperSafe is going to pick them up and bring them into the system for you then to review and process. Okay, so it's going to save it to that folder. PaperSafe is monitoring that folder, and it's going to sweep it and bring it into the system. So now, if I am processing cash receipts or sales orders or payables transactions, whatever the case might be, I can come to my appropriate workflow queue. This is my inbox, and I can see that document. Now, down here, I can see I've got 10 documents out there that I need to process. By hitting this auto raise, that is what's going to get this window to speak with the Dynamics GP window. Okay, so if I'm using dual monitors, I can drop and drag that over, and we're going to go into the record that we're trying to create those transactions for. And then we are going to do what I refer to side-by-side entry. So instead of having paper sitting here on my desk, I have my documents already in front of me in an electronic fashion. I can bring up a batch. I can put in the vendor information, the document number, document values, any of those fields. You're really going to interact with SL, AX, GP the same way. The only difference is we've got the document in the viewer. But because this auto raise is on, when I click Save, the document gets associated, and then it advances to the next document out there in that stack. So now I can process this transaction. Okay, and once again, I'm going to enter in all the fields based on that transaction that I'm creating, and then hit Save. Boom, files it. So it's filing it at the same pace that you're doing the entry into GP. So it takes seconds to capture the document, and then it takes, well, really a blink of an eye just to file that document. And that's an example of scan first. So if you were doing sales orders, right, you would come down here and you could go into your sales transactions, and here is your stack of electronic sales orders or cash receipts or whatever, the case may be. Okay? Okay, so now we need to deal with electronic document capture methods because, well, not everything comes to us in paper. So we want to make sure that we have the capability to get electronic documents into the system. I mentioned that PaperSafe is integrated in with Outlook. So if I wanted to add in an invoice that I got into that scan first process, right, I could come here and I could add either the whole email, there's information in the body of the email that's important to me, or I could just simply add that document into the process. And it's just going to add this document seamlessly into that inbox for me. Now, if this is something that, let's say, is a W-9 form, I can come and add that W-9 form into the system. Here, let's open that up, and we can say, I'm going to add the attachment, and let's say I'm going to come and I'm going to add the W-9 form. Whoops, I hit the wrong button, excuse me. Let's go into Add More. And what we're going to do is we're going to add it into a record that already exists inside the host system. Okay, so here you can see I've got GP, and if I minimize that, you can see the CRM records that we integrate with. You can see the SL records, and I have AX actually on a different box because it doesn't necessarily play as well with GP, SL, and CRM being installed on the same machine. But we can say, I want to add this to a vendor record, right? And I can come and select vendor. And then, well, what am I searching for? Well, I don't know. So let me just go and show all records, and then I can filter. So if I said, gosh, what's the name of it? It has contains travel. You can see as I start typing, it's filtering through my vendor list. I can select the appropriate value, or record in that case, and then I can add it into the system. So now you can see we've grabbed all that additional record information. I can say it's a W-9, and then I can save and exit. Okay. Now, one other thing that is also very handy is the capability to drag and drop. So, some people have preferences. I like to drag and drop when I send out an email versus attach. So that may be my primary way I want to interact with the system. So if I went to a vendor, and let's say I wanted to add a document, I could hit save, or even here I can go to additional documents, and I can come back into Outlook, and I can say, oh, there's that W-9 form. I'm going to drag and drop it into the system. And now we have just saved the document. So I can use Outlook, I can use drag and drop, I can browse out and attach, I can use scan now, scan later, or attach a file. The nice thing is the end result is the same. The documents are all stored consistently based on your business rules. So you can probably notice I went to hit save and exit, whereas this is a required field. I have to populate something there. And that's going to be important when we get over to the search and retrieval, because I want my searches to come out consistent with accurate information. So you can set the system up with those types of rules associated with them. Okay, so let's go back over here to the PowerPoint presentation, and let's talk just for a moment around kind of some of these benefits with a capture. One is it's extremely flexible. Users can interact with the system in a way that it makes sense for them. We've got scan later cover sheets. Back in the day when I started working with Nancy, that was awesome. People loved the scan later feature because it was a great way to get a document in the system here and a document in there. But since then, more and more organizations are using multifunctional devices, and people are used to scanning a document and emailing to them. So what we're finding is people are using that drop and drag into the system. But is there a right way or a wrong way to add a document? No. It's really based on your process, preference, and hardware that's available for you. Okay, now, you also can profile documents, and that's that user-defined metadata that we saw to the right side of the document. Now, because you have business rules, that's going to ensure consistency to make sure that users are capturing documents and cataloging them the same way. Because when we get into document retrieval, we've got 6 different ways to search on documents, and one of them is around that profile information. So a lot of times users are going to drill down from a document right from a record, a card, a transaction. You also can use the query tools built in within the host system. So in the case of GP today, we'll take a look at the Smart List integration. You can also search on those profile fields using the paper-safe search. We have content search, which will dynamically read the content of the document. So if you're looking for a specific value or words, phrases, you can actually have the system dynamically search through the filing cabinet looking for those values. We integrate with SSRS reports. So if you've created an SSRS report and you want your users to be able to drill down from the report to the source transaction, you could do that. Or also, we're integrated with Solver's BI 360, so you could do the same thing if you're using the Solver tool. We have SharePoint search, as well as record browser. Now, just real quick, in the case of SSRS reports, it allows you to go from a line item to the detail, and then the detail to the source document. So it's a great way of being able to deliver reports and allow the reader of that report to drill down to the supporting documentation. So let's take a look then at some of those other methods. Okay, so once you open up a record, a transaction, it doesn't really matter. If there are documents associated with it, you're going to get in your lower right-hand corner a little notification window that tells you, hey, documents exist. So instead of having to get up from my desk and go to that filing cabinet, I can simply click that link, and now I've pulled up the document. If this document has undergone a workflow, approvals, we can see that complete approval thread here from the time it was received to the time it was approved and associated with a document. So all of those steps involved. Now, if I need to email out this document, I can simply come, select email. Here it is as attachment. I can define who I want to send it to, and then send it on its way. So think about that with customer service especially. If a customer calls, they haven't gotten a copy of their invoice, or they need a copy of this or that, boom, you can pull it up and send it on to them. Now, PaperSave will automate another process for you. So just as an example, I had mentioned before during the PowerPoint presentation that we automate that matching process. And that matching process is what is typically done with the check stub and the supporting document before it goes in the filing cabinet. Well, we already know, right, how the document gets filed, and that's already done. So how is that matching done on the back end of the process? Well, we do that based on the relationships that exist inside of GP. So if we scroll down to a payment transaction, let me scroll down, there's a payment, and we open it up, PaperSave tells us that documents exist, right? So if we want to take a look at a copy of the check, we can see a copy of that check. If we really want to take a look at this check and all of the associated documents, which we can see those relationships here under the Apply tab, then we can come to Additional and Show Associated Documents. So this is going to be those documents that PaperSave matched for you, the payment and those 3 transactions that were paid by this check. I can then drill down, select them, drill down to them, and I can scroll through them. So we know that this document is related to this record, right? And voucher 45, that's going to be defined by the host system, and we can scroll forward to the next document and the next document. Now, here's a good example. A document here has annotations on it. So if we want to hide information, maybe there's some information that's a little bit more sensitive. Could be credit card number, right? PCI compliance. Maybe some of you all are in healthcare and you got patient information on there, so we want to hide that because of HIPAA rules and regulations. Or there's information that you just don't want everybody to see. Well, these annotations can be added onto a document. You can define, so you can add an annotation, hide an annotation, as well as delete an annotation. So it's a great way of giving somebody access to a document, but maybe not the entire document if there's a little bit more sensitive information on it. Now, those annotations can also be controlled here. So if you were writing information on the document, you can even pick the width of your pen, the color of your pen, the text, font, and size, and everything. You also have Audit Trail. Now, Audit Trail is great because it's showing you who has touched this document since it's been added into the system, and what have they done. Have they viewed it, printed it, saved it, emailed it? Have they changed any of that profile information if they have those rights? It's going to show you who's doing what in the system. Now, if somebody leaves the organization and left under questionable terms, and if you want to see what they've done over the last 30 days or 60 days, there are reports that you can run in Management Console as well. So it's a great way of kind of, just because somebody has access to the information doesn't mean they should be in it every day either. Okay, so that's an example of the multi-association, how we kind of tie those documents together based on the relationships that exist within the host system, right? Because it doesn't matter what host system you're using. A PO if you're using POs, well, you have to receive against it, then you invoice against it, and then you pay the check. And there are those relationships that we're just capitalizing on in the purchase order process as well as the sales order process. Okay, another popular way to get back to documents is the SmartList integration. And so with SmartList integration, this is where you can run a SmartList or a query, and then you're going to come up with your results. Okay, so there are a couple different ways that you can run queries. AX has one version, CRM has advanced find, and all you're going to do is use those query tools, come up with your results, and then under additional, you can go show documents from a query. Now, this is showing you, let's say you're preparing for an audit, and your auditor wants to look at all supporting documents coded to a certain, for a transaction, coded to a certain GL account, maybe for a time frame, maybe over a dollar amount, whatever that criteria happens to be. Now we've, within a couple clicks, been able to pull that whole list. Now, every document is represented really as a row, and the columns of information help us identify what record or transaction the document's associated to. So if I want to sort or I want to filter, I can select my operator, type in my value, and then just click enter, and now I've come up with a filtered list, right? I can select that group, and then I can also scroll through that group as well. Okay, so even if I get here and I say, I want to see a copy of that check, right from my toolbar, I can still come to show associated documents, and here's where I can view that payment. Or maybe I want to look at that W-9 form. I could go and even look at that W-9 form if I have rights to view vendor documents. So it's allowing you to pull a group of documents based on information that's on the record or the transaction. So like I mentioned, a lot of clients love that, especially around end-of-month processing and audit processing. One other way before we get into the workflow that I want to show as far as how can you search documents, that is based on the Papersafe search feature. So with Papersafe search, that's hidden down here in my system tray. I can search for information based on content or profile. So if I want to take a look at all contracts or all W-9 forms and I have rights to view that information, I can do that. Now in this case, I've got W-9 forms associated with lease agreements, which is a freestanding document type, so Papersafe can be used well outside of your Dynamics solutions. But if I want to filter on a specific record type, now I can see all of those vendors who have W-9 forms associated with them. So great way of being able to search for information based on any of these profile fields. And last but not least, before we kind of get into the workflow, is that content search. Now, a lot of times, you could be searching for that needle in the haystack. And, if I know something about it, I could type in a value and then click go. So I'm looking to replace a part, and I can't remember who the vendor was, and now it's brought me to at least the sublist of a lot smaller than, going through rows and rows and rows of filing cabinets. And here, if I drill down into these documents, you can see how Papersafe was able to retrieve this document. So if I zoom in on that area, you can see wall mount is right here within the body of the document. So as you scan and capture documents into the system, Papersafe is going to convert them to be a searchable PDF file for you. So it's going to search PDFs. It's also going to search emails and your Microsoft Office documents. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation, and let's take a look at some of those benefits around retrieval. Instant access. You can instantly pull up a document and distribute a document if you need to. flexible search and retrieval methods. So, sometimes you're looking for documents based on document-related information. Sometimes you're looking for information relating to records or financial transactions. And we offer a wide variety of ways that you can then pull those documents. Then you can deal with them and manage them either individually or as a group. So you can email a document out one by one, or maybe you want to email out the entire group that you selected. You can do that as well. Okay, now we'll start getting into the workflow. So this is that next tier to the system. Now the workflow manages the review and approval process around the documents. The system comes with several templates that are already built, and those templates are either single-tiered or two-tiered approval processes. Or, it's a full workflow engine as well, so really workflows can be created around your business environment, your steps, your business rules, and so forth. Now, here on the screen is just a sample workflow process. So we can see every single step of the process is shown in a block. Now, that initial step is really an important step because this is kind of that top of that workflow funnel. How do we get documents in there? Well, we saw earlier where we could scan to a network folder. We saw from Outlook that you could open up an email and save it in. But around workflow, we actually have another option as well. You can have PaperSave monitor email accounts. So if you have an email account already set up for, let's say, accounts payable at, and then your domain name, PaperSave can bring those documents into the process automatically. So you don't even have to touch or handle that content to get it into the approval process. So that's a great new addition to our solution that we recently came out with. Now, the next step of the approval process can be either an automation step if you're looking at an automation engine, or the document can go straight to your manager. So this is the first approval step within the system. And the manager may only have the ability to approve to a certain dollar amount. So here, if I drill down on this step of the process, PaperSave allows me to then have a decision point in the workflow. So it goes in, goes to the manager. Well, Holly can only approve up to $1,000. The invoice is $1,500. So it's looking back at this workflow engine and it says, hey, if the document is within the manager's approval threshold, it's going to allow them to approve it, and then it's going to send it to data entry. And that is that scan first step that we already took a look at, where the AP processor can create the transaction, the document gets filed automatically. And then if it's over that threshold, it's going to send it to the next step of the approval process, which could be that director review. But if that director can only approve up to $5,000 and the invoice is $7,500, you'll notice it can go through the different tiers that make sense for your process and what's set up for your process. So there are many different roles, and we're going to go through some of these roles. One is capture. We already took a look at capturing because there we can scan it to a folder. We can use Outlook either from an individual's email box or a group email box to get those documents into the process. Approvers. What does it look like from an approver's perspective? They're probably used to an invoice being dropped on their desk or in a folder dropped on their desk, and now we're going to be able to send out email alerts that let them know that documents exist that need their review. And these documents are going to appear in these alerts every single day until one or two things happen. One is the document gets escalated based on your rules, or two, they approve it and it goes on to the next step of the process. Now, typically approvers are going to be on the go. So if they are, and you get, well, I can't approve it because I'm here, I'm traveling this week, and I'm not going to be back in the office until next Thursday. Well, that's okay because they can approve the invoices through a mobile device or a tablet. Then we also have you all, the process managers. How do you know where the documents are? How can you move documents around or redirect information to avoid those bottlenecks, which also is going to help avoid those phone calls coming in from your vendors wondering where payment is, because we're going to get it into the process in a timely fashion. We're going to get it through the process so that you can decide when you want to pay it based on, the terms for the vendor. Not necessarily you have to pay it to avoid those late fees. Okay, so let's take a look at the workflow. Okay, so I'm going to take a look as a manager. And let's say I am a manager and let's say I get an email alert. Here's an example of an email alert. So it's telling me I've got 4 items out there that need my review. And if I'm on the go, I can approve it on my phone, my tablet or computer, or if I'm already sitting here at my desk, I can click on Windows Review. Now this is integrated in with Active Directory, so it's not going to ask me who I am. It knows who I am because it knows how I'm logged into the network environment. It's going to launch or download what I need to view the documents, and then it's going to show me the content. I apologize. My machine's a little sluggish here. Must know it's a holiday weekend coming up. So here I can see the workflow Explore, and I can start with the oldest document. Okay, so here's Best Buy, right? I can see that Best Buy document. Maybe I have my resolution set really high or really low, so I can always adjust it and view it different ways as well. Well, if I need to provide coding information, because that's what you need from me as this part of the step of the process, I could come in and provide that coding information. So this is where I can look up on the GP chart of accounts, and maybe I want to search for a supplies account, right? So maybe I want to say contains SUPP. Maybe, let's see, what accounts do I have in here? Oh gosh, well I knew I had the inventory account. But anyway, it's going to search on my GP chart of accounts for me, and then it's going to populate that information over here under that distribution. So I can keep adding row after row after row. And it is going to just allow me to do an unlimited number of lines for the distribution. Now, once I've completed whatever information you need from me, it is going to allow me to approve that document, and it's going to send it to the next step of the process based on, well, your process rules that we saw in that process map. And it's going to bring up the next document and the next document. So it's going to allow me one after the other to send it to the next step. Now, for your perspective, you need to know where everything is in the process. And I am in here as a super user, so I have rights to everything. So when I come here to this area, right, I can see, looking across all approvers, I can see I have 340 invoices in process. Okay, so if I get a phone call from Fujitsu, I can click on that and say, oh, here's that invoice, right? I can go directly to that information and say, gosh, I need to send this up to the next level of reviewer because this person has sat on it. Now, escalation rules can also help get that document from one approver to another approver. You also have the capability to, group. So if you want to see which documents are owned by who, right, we can take a look at who owns those documents across your process and what's sitting out there in their hands. So you have that knowledge and insight as to where all that information is. If you also want to sort this information ascending or descending, you could do that as well. Okay. Now, we can add in another variable to that. And let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation and talk just briefly about some of the workflow. benefits, because there you can kind of see it's giving you that insight. So it's going to help you reduce your procurement to pay cycles. Just as an example, with one of our clients, which is Ironman, the triathlon folks, we helped reduce their pay cycle by 200%, but most importantly, we also helped reduce their cost per invoice process from like $40 to $45 down to $2 to $3 per invoice. And they have worldwide operations that, were causing a lot of delay and bottlenecks in their process. It's giving you insight to where things are, and you can actually reroute them as well. You can move things around the process, and the system's going to track that information. You can allow users to put themselves out of the office and select a delegate approver as well, so it's not just coming in and being put on their desk waiting for their return. In that case, right, it's automatically going to redirect those documents. If you have multiple locations and you're experiencing any type of cost associated with transporting documents, you really can help eliminate those costs as well. Pizza Properties, Ironman, C-Mobile, which does telecommunications for cruise lines, they were experiencing 15 packages from all the locations being overnighted every Friday so that they show up on Monday morning. Well, there's a lot of cost associated with that every single week that we were able to help eliminate. And then, of course, with that web browser approval, IT folks love it because, well, all you need is a web browser to be able to view and approve documents. Okay, let's take a look at that transaction automation. So this is kind of going into that next step of that, evolution. How can we get the document, or how can we get the system to do the data entry for us? And that is through optical character recognition technology. Now, thankfully, the cost of the technology has come down some over the years. It's still, something that is not necessary for every organization because there's some cost involved with this add-on component. But it's designed to do the extraction, actually lift off of the invoice, vendor, date, dollar amount, invoice number. It allows you to review any of those exceptions. You can validate that information, and then that information goes right into the workflow, right out to those approvers. So let's take a look at what that automation engine looks like. And in this case, right, let me close down some of these windows because I've got a lot of them open. Automation starts right after that capture. So going back, you can capture documents by having PaperSafe read and pull documents in from an email address. You can electronically insert documents, or you can scan documents to a folder. Once they're there, you can go into the automation engine. And this automation engine is going to allow you to pull up a stack or a batch of documents. So from here, it's going to bring those documents in, pull the information off of those documents, and then allow me to only handle those exceptions. Okay. Now, exceptions can come to us in a couple different forms. Exceptions could be low confidence characters. Maybe it's kind of a grainy, not so great document. And it's really not 100% sure of what it's captured if it's correct. So it's going to allow you to address that. Also, if information is missing that you have said is required, like a vendor, right? It has to be able to pull a vendor name in. That's a required field, and it's required for entry into GP. So it's better to deal with that type of exception at this point in time. Now, if I capture 20 documents and there were only 7 out here that had any kind of exception, those are the only ones you're going to see. The others have already gone into the workflow process. Now, over here on the left is my profile. That is information that we want pulled from our documents. Okay, so vendor, date, dollar amount, invoice number. If you use a PO or some type of reference, or an account number even, if you have a lot of vendors that you have account numbers with. So from here, instead of having to click through each one of those documents, I'm going to hit F7 on my keyboard, and that's going to show me those exceptions. Okay, these exceptions are going to be presented here in this verification window. We can see what was captured in this top line, and we can see a zoomed-in portion of that document in that lower box. Now, I have my low confidence character threshold set very high. And now I can go through and confirm if that information was captured correctly. If not, I can change that information as well. Okay, so it is in fact a 1, and it captured a 1, so I can go ahead and confirm. And I can keep going through the process until I have no more exceptions. Now, what ends up happening kind of over time is I may want to adjust that low confidence character down a little bit, because some of these are really, that we're showing as exceptions, really are not exceptions, and they're really good, clean, crisp, clear documents. But it still is based on your preferences. Now, in this case, you can see this document is a little grainy, right? So not really a great quality document. It is a period, but it captured it as a comma. So I'm just going to hit period on my toolbar, and then I can confirm through the rest of the information. Okay. So now we can have the system go through, and I can press F8 on my toolbar, and it will tell me if any information is missing, okay, that we've said is required. And the answer there is no, because it's finished capturing everything. Now, obviously, we've seen these documents before, so it's able to find all of that information. However, if it's a new document, or what does it look like when you start using the system, we have to train the system on where to find that information. Okay, so down here, I can tell the system, where's that vendor key? Well, vendor key, think of it as a coordinate on the document that's not going to change. Okay, so usually someplace in the heading. So here, Office Max, vendor name, vendor address. Let's look around the document and find that vendor address. And I can come and capture that information. Vendor phone number, do we have a phone number? Maybe not. We can come down here to amount, and I can click on the invoice amount, invoice date, invoice number, and so forth. Okay, so I can populate that information. Now, I did that just by pointing and clicking. We want to save this in the database. So I could do this, save this template 2 different ways. One is through a keystroke, Control-N, and if you're wondering how I knew that, is because here under Auto Find, we can learn or relearn the document now, or you'll also notice Control-N. So as an AP processor, right, I can just click, 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 have the system memorize it by hitting Control-N, and next time when we see an Office Max invoice, that information is going to be pulled automatically for me. Okay, questions there? Nancy, wasn't sure if there are any questions, because you know what, I apologize, y'all. I just realized I don't see the questions as a panel.
Right. I've written them all down, and we have about 4 or 5. 2 of them are mine, so I thought I might just read them to you if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I think I know the answer to some, but I wanted your clarification. Let's see, depends on whether, okay, where are documents stored, local or cloud? And so I assumed that was whether they were being hosted in a SaaS environment or running GP or whatever ERP application locally.
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that. So documents can be stored locally, or they can also be stored in the cloud in the Azure platform.
Oh, wow.
We do offer both options now, and we're very excited about our cloud offering that we announced at Convergence this past March.
And for those of you who don't know, Azure is the Microsoft cloud. So that's new. I'm sorry I didn't know that, Holly. That's great. Okay, so just so I can get through these, then the next one is, can you scan on network copier? Oh, can you scan from a network copier to do the scanning? I'm sorry, I rewrote these in my words.
Yep, no worries. Yes, you can use those multifunctional devices to point to a shared network folder and then once if you scan to that folder, PaperSafe's going to pick it up just the way I did with my little desktop scanner. And most of those multifunctional devices, you can configure a shortcut to point towards that folder location, so somebody can walk up, select the shortcut, and it goes right there for you.
Okay. And then can remote non-GP users access the documents?
Yes. Yes, they sure can. They can do that either through a web browser or through our SharePoint integration.
Okay, or SharePoint. And then those are what those browser designer license are for. Holly, is that correct?
Yes, if you're not using SharePoint, so PaperSafe has an option, and we do an optional integration with SharePoint. So it allows a lot of that host system data to be exposed in SharePoint, and even SharePoint Online if you're using Office 365. And let me just go out here to my SharePoint site. Because what ends up happening is users can then just use a native web browser to go out here, and if I'm looking for an invoice, right, I can come to purchasing and I can say, oh, you know what, let me look for a payables transaction. And then what I'm seeing on the screen next is my host system data. Okay, and this, we're kind of marrying up data that's contained in SLAX, CRM, GP, here within a web browser so that somebody can come and say, oh gosh, I'm looking for that Fujitsu invoice, so I can say it contains, and then it's going to filter through those results, and then I can show the document. Now, if you're not using SharePoint and don't care to implement SharePoint, not a problem, because we do have web browser licenses, which just is a web view right into the database without that SharePoint platform. And those are, Nancy, just what you refer to as those web browser licenses.
Okay, that makes sense to me because I realize now that's an option to SharePoint. Okay.
Yep.
So number 4, and this is just a quick question of mine, are the annotations on those documents, is that an admin-only ability to block out some of that information, or does any user have that ability to block out information on a document?
Another excellent question. So for every document type, you can define who can add an annotation, hide an annotation, as well as delete an annotation. So it definitely could be just, an admin feature, but like here's an example. If I want to come and add an annotation, I can do that. If I have rights to hide annotations, I actually see this option. If I don't have rights to hide an annotation, I don't even see that option.
Okay, so it's a security setup. Okay, great.
It is.
Okay,
and it can be applied by Active Directory user as well as group.
Okay, I have 2 more, I think, and Pam has another one. Okay, let me, let's see, number 10. Okay, can remote, okay, can you scan? Oh, if you had an invoice, when does the invoice hit the GL? When does that cost hit the GL? At the end of the approval process or at the beginning?
That's a great question, and let's take a look at that real quick. Okay, so the documents go into the system. They can go into the workflow for approvals first and then into GP, or they can go into GP and then the workflow second. So it really depends on how your workflow is set up. Here in the case of annotation, or excuse me, here in the case of automation, if I come and let's say we've automated the extraction of the information, it's gone to the workflow. At the end of that workflow step, or workflow process I should say, then you can see those documents. You can see the profile fields. So if I am the AP processor, I'm not creating the transaction. I am going to hit review the information and hit submit. And at this point in time, the transaction is in GP and then can be posted over to the GL. Okay, so in this case, if we create a couple of these, what it does is it takes that profile information and it sends it into GP through web services. And that document's associated to it. So if I come in here, back into GP, and we go into transactions, and this is just going into a batch, I had just created, Best Buy Mobile Mini and shred it, so you can see the transactions here. Now it's unposted, so it hasn't technically hit the GL yet. I can see the document. I can also see that complete audit trail, so you can see when I created this document. It was just about a minute ago. And then I would post it like I normally would.
Okay, great. All right, really, and then still have a couple more as long as you can hang with us. Michelle asked about Management Reporter. Does PaperSafe have the ability to attach documents to Management Reporter?
In 2013, if I'm not mistaken, Nancy, you can kind of help me with this because you're more the GP experts than I know GP, and I know, and that question was specifically GP because it was Management Reporter. But in 2013, you can drill down from the report to the GP transaction, actually bring the transaction up. Is that correct?
Well, I'm going to have to ask Michelle Durkin. She is she's a consultant, a GP consultant, and I don't know. Let's see, is there a plan to be able to attach the documents? Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to read. It's very small print on the questions, so I don't know the answer to that. I believe, okay. I do believe so.
Okay. Yeah, if you can, and I want to say I'm pretty sure that in GP 2013 specifically, you can drill down from the Management Reporter report to the transaction, and once you get to the transaction, you can drill down to the document.
Okay, great. All right, to the doc. And then
with other applications like SL and AX, a lot of times they're using either Crystal or SSRS reports, and there you can integrate PaperSafe with those reports easily.
Okay, and for those on the call, I will get some clarification from Michelle on that and make sure that that's correct. I believe it is, but we will double check that one. And then two more questions, Holly. One is, can the approvers go back and view all the approvals they have made in the past? I mean, they may see, sometimes an approver might want to, maybe they get something current and they go, gosh, how did I react last time? How did I respond? Is there a way for those approvers to go back and see, like a repository of all the approvals maybe they've made?
They'd have to be, they would either go through the record browser or through the SharePoint integration to pull kind of those process documents out. If somebody wants to take a look at a document that they've processed and they want to kind of see where it is in the approval process, if you're dealing with a multi-tier, workflow, you can do that within the system. Can't do anything with it once it goes beyond, your control, but you can see it. Okay. So if it's something in that classification, then yes, you can. If not, you can always pull the history through the record browser or through the SharePoint integration to see, how you handled a certain, invoice, maybe from a distribution perspective.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, history. All right. And then Ms. Pam had one more, and she has been our great question person here. She asked, is there any type of automation to matching packing slips, POs, and invoices?
Yes. So that automation, once you put in that purchase order and you receive against it, I'm assuming the packaging list is going to be associated with that receiving transaction, it is going to match to that purchase order automatically. And then when you invoice it, that invoice document is going to be matched as well. So if you go into GP and you look at a record, let's go into purchase order documents. And I think I've got a sample here. And let me check these boxes. Right, once you go here, I can take a look at all of the associated documents. Okay, so just like I could from that check, I could come to show associated documents, and it's going to show me the relationships from the time that PO was created to the point in time where it is right now. And then it will keep adding documents or matching documents to it in case there are multiple receipts against the PO. It will do that for you automatically. And we can also automate the creation of the transactions using that same automation engine. In that scenario, we'd just be pulling off line item details.
Okay, great. All right, so just a little clarification, and then I don't see any more questions. Michelle was actually asking about non-GP documents, attachments to a management reporter. So I'm not sure how that would work. Could you be able to attach a non-GP document to a management report?
I don't know. Why don't we have a conversation after this to kind of come up with maybe a specific scenario?
Okay.
And we can look at that.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that. That's all the questions I have today. I know that after you see this and you think through it, a lot of questions can come up, and please feel free to reach out to your account manager, or I believe that Holly did include her email address. I don't recall, but any of your account managers should be able to help you or set up a personal one-on-one demonstration. Because with PaperSave, one of the key ingredients to a real successful document management solution is the workflow and the development prior to deployment. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions that could come from this. So Holly, I very much appreciate your time today, and I hope everyone got some good information. And again, please reach out to the account managers and let us know how we can help with questions, or if you'd like to see more information on PaperSave, just let us know.
Thank you, everybody, for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful and safe Memorial holiday weekend ahead of us.
You too. Thanks, Holly. Bye.